Hello everyone, Father Carl here. I'm happy to be with you to share a reflection on this weekend's Gospel from Luke. We hear in this beautiful story Jesus is in the synagogue in his hometown Nazareth. He's handed a scroll, he unrolls it, and this is what he reads and says. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord." Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down, and the eyes of all in the synagogue looked intently at him. He said to them, "Today this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing." Today, the gospel encourages us to ask ourselves some important questions. I'd like you to recall with me, if you can, one of my favorite commercials, "What's in Your Wallet?" I'm sure that you've seen one of their many commercials, and this one particularly is a favorite of mine. There's a man who is with a woman, and he asks the woman to wait for him patiently while he goes and takes care of the business with his credit card. And she promises to wait. The next scene, however, shows the man returning, and he's off camera. And he said, "You've waited." And we see the woman from the back still wearing the same dress. But as she turns, her now extremely aged face to the viewers, the commercial makes the point asking, "What's in your wallet?" That commercial makes me smile every time. But it asks us to consider this question. How many of us at times have felt that same interminable wait for a simple prayer to be answered? The agony of that waiting. If we think about that, we can only imagine what went through the minds of the Jewish people when they were exiled in Babylon. They're forced to move from their homeland to a foreign land. It would have been easy for them to give up hope, but instead they do their best clinging to hope. We're reminded in this first reading today that 50 years in exile was not enough to put out the flame of hope that God had lit and put into each one of them, something that they carried with them even in their darkest hour. Now, let's think about the people in Nazareth who Jesus speaks to today. How long had they been waiting for the Messiah? And here comes Jesus with the announcement in the temple that with him, the ancient hope of Israel has been fulfilled. He is the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecies of the coming Messiah. After waiting for so long, they must have thought, "Hey, sorry, bud, it's too little, too late." But what they, and often many of us, fail to realize is that we never will have to wait again. Salvation does not work like a revolving credit card where the balance between the debt and credit constantly is fluctuating. That's not how it works. With the coming of Jesus, we have a continuing supply of blessing, just sitting, if you will, in our spiritual wallet, so to speak. We are never without spiritual capital or access to grace. What's in our spiritual wallets is an everlasting abundance of love, and all we need to do is activate it. So what does this mean for us in a practical way? Well, often I hear people say today they feel we are living in the worst of times. With COVID, the violence and disrespect of human life, they say the world is coming undone. And I get that. Sometimes I feel that way myself. And it's hard to remain optimistic when so much seems fragile and uncertain and in disarray. This isn't only true in society, it could be true in our families, in our relationships. It could be true in the workplace. And here's where I think we have good news in our readings today. The readings remind us to have confidence in a loving God whose plan for the world continues to this day. It's a plan that doesn't hinge itself on an idea, but rather in a person, and that person is Jesus, the one who assured his listeners that today the scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing. I encourage us today to pray for the grace to continue to believe and hope. The grace to continue to believe and hope. Even when someone we love is seriously ill, or our marriage is on rocky ground, when the world seems to be in such constant conflict or crime seems to be out of control, to believe and hope in God, even when our child keeps making really bad choices, or the boss keeps threatening to let us go, or our parents we think don't understand or trust us. These readings remind us waiting is not an easy place to be. But we do not do so idly, doing nothing. The readings remind us to do our part, to remain faithful, trusting God will always do God's part. Where do we need to hear these words today? To remain faithful, trusting God will always do God's part.